Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Hopefully you can hear me and see me. I can't see anybody and I don't know why.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm good. Um, so we're gonna make the recording available for people who have registered for just a little while, and then we'll probably remove that because we would like to bring Rachel back and hopefully repeat or make different workshops that help fund our creatives, both who are from here, have lived here, and maybe have gone off somewhere else. um, so welcome to this workshop, and I really appreciate for everybody to be here. We are going to talk about how to pitch your movie so that it gets to the screen. And we're so excited to have Rachel here. She is a former fellowship recipient from our individual artist fellowship awards and an artist 360 recipient from Northwest Arkansas through Mid-America Arts Alliance. And she's also a well-established playwright, and I'm a really big fan. She's actually a wonderful person too. So just gonna put in a plug there for good people. I'll let her introduce herself, but just a little bit of, I guess, house cleaning here. If you can mute, please do. That way we don't distract our speaker. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and or raise your hand through the reaction button. Rachel's gonna allow people to speak, but we're kind of on a little bit of a time frame schedule. So if you have questions, please feel free to let us know and we will address them right away. I'm also going to be in the chat functions to help people and put different links and things if you need those. And I guess I think that's all. Oh, sorry. It's Sunday. I'm not really quite doing well. My name is Scarlett Sims. I'm the Artist Services Manager with the Arkansas Arts Council, and this is a GetSmART learning workshop. We try to help artists and creatives statewide to improve their professional development and go into a deep dive into different aspects of being a professional creative. If you have any comments, or questions or concerns or have other ideas for workshops, you can feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email in here, and I'm just going to let Rachel take it from here. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Scarlett. I'm going to do that awkward Zoom thing now where I quickly share my screen and stare intensely and then ask you all if you can see it. Cool. We should all be cool. Can everybody see that? Or Scarlett, can you just give me a thumbs up since I can see you? Okay, great. Let's get into it. Let me see if I can move. Yes, I can. Okay, great. So, hi, welcome. And so exciting to I don't need to see, don't worry. But to have you here, let's start. So I like to say, who am I? I hate bios. I've always hated bios. But those are my credits. I wrote some plays and I pitched a movie that is going to get filmed, I think, because of the strike, which I'll talk about in a second. I do not know yet when it'll hit our screens. I was also a staff writer for the Winchesters, and I've pitched to Hulu, FX, and Gunpowder Sky. So that's me. I really like to set up expectations. I hate when I go to a Zoom thing and I'm like, when is this over? What are we doing? What is happening? So being very transparent, this is going to be a little mini lecture with timed writing exercises with a Q&A at the end. The lecture and exercises will probably be about 90 minutes. Please stay muted until the end. There will be a part where if you want to, you'll be able to talk, but I'll tell you when that is. And I will mute you because you'll be timed. But you don't have to participate in that if you don't want to. You can keep your camera on. You can keep your camera off. It does not matter to me. Do what brings you joy. I will look at the chat as much as I'm able to, but I'm really thankful that Scarlett is here because I'm probably going to be I'm on two different screens, working with a computer that is not mine. As Scarlett said, if you can keep your questions until the end or during the writing exercises, that would be great. I want to acknowledge my bias. This is my experiences, the ones that I've had. I don't believe that there's a single right answer ever. I think that there's multiple right answers. So this is all based on just my experience specifically. Other people might have different experiences. I have just being a person of color who's also queer, the way that I'm going to pitch and who's going to let me pitch to them is going to be very different. If you're not those lines, just saying that that's who I am. there's probably typos in here. I write a lot of my slides at like 2 a.m. because I'm a super busy person and I don't sleep well. So if typos are like the thing that gets your gears, consider this my apology right off front. And then again, this is just the beginning of the conversation. You're going to see some parts where I'm like, there's a whole workshop on this that I can't do today. This is not the whole complete discourse. So next, we have to talk about the strike. So before we can talk about pitching, before we can talk about how to pitch, I have to let you know that WGA is on strike. I am a WGA member. What the writers are asking for is better pay, for AI to be limited in writers' rooms, and for more opportunities for writers to go to set. As a staff writer, I was sent to set because I had a very wonderful showrunner. But what's been happening lately is TV show production companies are sending less and less writers to set. Set is how you get moved up in the world. It's how you understand TV. Like imagine if there are any theater people in here having writing a play and then never ever going to rehearsal, never ever going to see a show. Like it's a very distant way. It's possible. I've definitely written shows or plays before where I didn't go to a rehearsal and I didn't see the show, but it feels very distant, and that's not what you want to be in the routine of doing. Also, as a staff writer, I have more set experience than some of executive producers because again, they haven't been set to set. So it's a big thing that we're fighting. But this also means that there's no pitching. We're talking to studios right now. There's no writers' rooms. There's no working on films in studios. So we're going to talk about pitching. But I really want to be super, super clear that please don't pitch right now. If you're not in the WGA, you can take that chance. If someone approaches you and they're like, hey, pitch us, you can do that if you want. There's some pretty heavy penalties. If people outside the WGA pitch right now and they get the green light, then they can never join the WGA later. It's a pretty great union. It's how I have health insurance. It also is like, gives me how I get my residuals, which is how I'm able to pay my rent. It's a union you want to be a part of if you are interested in pitching for TV or writing for movies or anything like that. But again, we've been on strike since May 2nd. How can you help? This is really complicated. The simplest answer is just to keep sharing and talking about it, telling people that the writers on strike, understanding why, researching. Some people are deleting all their streamers and saying they're not going to watch any TV because that's in solidarity with the writers. I don't agree with that. One, I don't think people have the staying power. A lot of people supposedly deleted their streamers on May 2nd. And then next thing I know, a week later, everybody was talking about Queen Charlotte. Like everybody that I know that supposedly deleted their Netflix somehow was able to watch a Netflix show. So I just don't think that there's, unless you really can commit to that. But also, if you're a new writer and you're just like, you just got your dream show and you're now going on strike because you have to, because you've been in this new experience and we all are striking. As a new writer, the only way you can get paid for your work is through residuals, which is just basically like every time someone watches or streams your show, you get a little bit of kickback. So what I would say the best way you can help is share, post about it, tell people about it, and then 2, watch scripted shows. Don't watch reality TV. Stick to scripted shows where you see a written by credit so that the writers who are striking can have a way to make a meet. So anyway, that's my spiel about strike. So just really quickly, I'm going to talk a little backwards, then we'll get into it. Just so you know about TV versus features. We're mostly going to spend the bulk of our time talking about features, aka writing a movie. But I do want to spend some time writing about TV. Oh, I forgot to mention, there will be a 5-minute break because I like breaks. I have to usually take a bio break. But I'll let you know when that is. So TV is usually more collaborative. It's 8 to 10 writers in a room. It used to be like 20, which is again why the writers are striking. And they work together to beat out a story. I'll tell you what that means later. And then 1 or 2 writer goes off to outline and then write the episode. And then the showrunners, who is like the big kana, right? They're the ones running the room. Features is usually you're more on your own. You pitch to a company or they approach you. You write a version of the feature. If they like it, great. That's rare. You usually write a version of the feature. They pay you to write the first draft. And then there's usually something in the contract that says they'll give you some notes and there's a second draft. Then if the second draft still isn't where they want it, they will hire on other writers to then take your draft and then write it, rewrite it or do editing. And then the WJ, a rep, which is why the WJ is important. A WJ rep comes in and decides how much writing credit goes to what writer after that. So it kind of gets split up that way. And this is kind of like a pretty big thought, but just kind of understanding the process of writing, I think is really important. if you want to learn how to pitch. Okay, so as I said, we're going to talk about both features and TV shows. We'll do features first and then TV. So let's get the awkward part out of the way. I bet everybody in this workshop, the first question you're going to ask me is like, who do I pitch to? How do I do it? I have a genius idea. How do I do it? Tell me now. Tell me the secret. Tell me all your secrets. I don't have any secrets. I'm sorry, like pitching the industry is still an industry that's all about who you know. And I hate to say this, I hated when people said this to me in theater, but if you really were ready, they'd be finding you, that you would know. Every person that I've pitched to, they reached out to me, they found me. That's not always 100% true, but that's 90% true, that they'll come to you when they come, but when they come, there's not going to be time for a learning curve. So what I think is really important is first you learn how to pitch, and then really work on that and really work on that skill so that when they come to you and you've got 2 days, you're not freaking out like, how do I even learn how to do this? The other way about it is you can submit to contests. You can get your name out there. I did this with playwriting. This is how I got my playwriting careers. I just sent out just a ton of plays. And you can also get an agent who can put your name out there, but really it's building networks, building, what's the word I'm looking for? Community with people. And from there, networking is the word I'm looking for. I think I'm very tired. I'm sorry. It's been a long weekend. And from there, using those networks, using those connections with people that you have to then being able to be like, hey, could I pitch you? But usually you have to wait till they ask you. And they will. So another really, really important thing to know is IP, which stands for intellectual properties. This is the big thing right now. A lot of us, when we first start thinking about the movies we want to write or the TV shows we want to write, we want to come up with original ideas, especially if they're like, I know coming from playwriting or coming from fiction writing, you're like, I have all these great ideas. I want to use my own ideas. Film and TV these days, especially film, they want a book. They want a book that you can base it off of. Your best bet is if you write a movie that's based on something that already exists. I have a joke that it's not really a joke, it's true. There's a book I really love called The Gilded Ones. And when I looked at the bio, it's written by a screenwriter who went to USC. And basically what she said was that she knew the only way to get her movie to be made into a movie was if she wrote the book first. So she wrote a book, it became a bestseller, and then she got the rights sold. So if you want to go the long way, if you've got a great idea, write a book first, make it a bestseller, and then now you can write your own original idea. But your best chances are finding life rights, a podcast, but usually a book. It's usually fiction that's doing really, really well. So next, and then once you get enough name, you can write whatever you want, but you do kind of have to play the game a lot. I will share, you may not like the book. So when I said they're going to find you, production companies will find you. I've read so many books because production companies have asked me to. I joke that like, I miss reading for fun. Lately, I've been reading because some company was like, Rachel, read this book and pitch it to us. And most of them aren't great. And you kind of have to decide, like, there's been a couple people where I've like, hey, I read the book and I can't, like this, I'm not the right writer for this. This is not for me. If you don't like the book, it's your choice. Like if you don't like the book, but you're like, I really want this for my stepping stone, and you make a great pitch, just know you're going to be working on this for about 2 years of your life. You're going to have to know this book in and out. You're going to have to read it like 10 times. The book that I'm adapting right now for 30,000 feet, I've read in and out. I have like a page by page breakdown of what happens on every single page of that book. I have multiple printed out copies of it. Like it consumes your life. So do you really want your life to be consumed by a book you don't like? And know that there, as always, I like to tell writers, your no is a superpower. You can always say no, and there's going to be something else that'll come and take its place. It does not, the next thing about TV or features and TV that you need to know about is that it does not matter how prepared you are or how nice your visuals are. You should be prepared. You should have nice visuals. And again, we'll talk about that in a second. But TV and film is all about talking. I struggle with this because I'm someone who does not like, you probably won't believe me after this workshop because I'll be talking the most of the time, but I don't like talking that much. I don't like talking that much about my work. I like showing my work rather than talking about my work. So I'm someone that I would rather have an outline. I would rather have a summary. I would rather say, here's the work, you go look at it. You tell me if you like it. Where TV, they don't want to look at anything until you've convinced them with talking. So there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of like selling. There's a lot of marketing and sales in especially features. And I think that it really helps that instead of thinking about some of these documents as writing, thinking of it more as a sales document will make your pitches that much stronger. You're going to have to start practicing these pitches out loud. As much as, and I'm going to talk about this again, as much as TV is about talking and it is about like really selling that sell, you have about 15 minutes to do it. You don't have a lot of time. These execs are on their phones the entire time. They've got assistants trying to get their attention. Their attention is very limited. You have 15 minutes. And that's with grace. It's usually like 10 to really get them to say yes or no. And they usually know yes or no in the first 5 minutes. So yeah, you learn how to talk. We won't have time to do a lot of talking today. We'll do a quick pitch. But that's just something for you to think about if this is something you're interested in. All right, let's get into it. These are the elements of pitching features. We're going to talk about what each of these are. Blue skying, synopsis, themes, tone, comps, characters. Every single pitch, whether it's for film, whether it's for TV, has these elements in it. Making sure. We too need a workshop on writing a book. Okay, won't be led by me. So blue skying, this is the fun part. This is my favorite part. This is where you just let your imagination run wild. You write down what you love about the story. You write down what you're really passionate about. You write like, here's who the character is I like the most. Here's who the protagonist. I'm not always the same character. They're often not the same character in what I write. Like, who, like if you had all the money in the world and your dream of dreams, who's in it? How long is it? What are the audiences are going to say about it? I know someone who during her blue skying will write a review of it as if it's already existed, like if someone's writing a film review, right? So this is the part where you have fun. This is kind of like the brainstorming part. This is the part where you just get all your ideas out, because next you'll need it for the synopsis. Your synopsis needs to be tight. It needs to be 5 to 8 sentences, and 8 is really pushing it. You really want 5 to 6 of the story. And you have to include the end. I know a lot of people, when we write synopses, we're like, and time will tell who will know. They don't want that in a pitch. They want to know what the end is. But then again, remember, this is still a sales document. So even if you say, like, I don't know, the 3 little bears were able to defeat Goldilocks. I know that's not what happens, but let's just say it is. You want to put like, and the daring 3 bears were finally able to overcome, like everything needs to be a sale. It's not something that I was told by one of my mentors is that a lot of times we think your writing has to be good. And if you go kind of over the top, it's too cheesy and it's not like good writing. Forget that. Don't think about that. Make it over the top. You are selling it. You're selling the sale. Be your cheesiest, brightest, shiniest in this sales document, you know? The next big thing that you need to know is all the major characters need to appear in your synopsis. If they are in your character breakdown, which we'll talk about in a second, and they have to be in here, I would write more than 1 draft. A lot of times, a synopsis is a lot harder than people think it is. They think, oh, I know what happens in it. And the next thing they know, they have half a page. Or they have 3 sentences, but it doesn't tell you anything that actually happens, who does what. I think like a lot of us have been thinking about like Netflix synopses, which aren't even synopses. They're not even summaries. Like they're like 2 sentences where it's like, it's very sly. It's like, watch while this happens, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what this is being asked for here. This is the part where you really have to figure out, if this was a sales pitch, how would I sell this story, but also give away the end? Themes. This is also where you sell the idea. You need to have at least 3 themes. What are the major motifs? What will people walk away thinking about? What is the core of the story? When I say 3 themes, it's 3 words. You can't be like, the theme is about overcoming the brutality of blah, blah, blah. It's got to be something than that. It's got to be maybe overcoming trauma, maybe regeneration, like picking words that make people ask questions, but it can't be too wordy. Because again, they're not paying attention to you, unfortunately. No. Tone. I hate the word tone. And the TV and film people love the word tone. But you need a tone. It has to be 1 or 2 words. I like to think of genre instead of tone because that helps my brain a little bit better. Is it a dark comedy? Is it satirical? Is it funny? This is really like, be careful with this one. This one can get really tricky. Like if you're like, it's a dramedy, but it's also a hyper fantasy. That's pick which one. Which one is it? Is it hyper fantasy or is it dramedy? And kind of which one do you think will sell better? Because if it even has more than one tone in your mind, you don't want to confuse the execs. Not that they're not very smart and brilliant people, but again, keep in mind they're half listening to you, which is just the sad truth of it. Comps. What other movies are similar in tone? This is really important. I always thought in the beginning when I started doing this that comps needed to be like what's kind of got the same story. You kind of want to make it seem like you haven't told this story before, even though you probably have. So what you want to do is instead find the same vibe. So I'm writing a psychological thriller that's about kind of Gamergate and kind of sexism in the gaming industry. And one of my comps was Greta, which has nothing to do with that, if you know. It is a thriller, kind of. If you know the movie Greta. What I was saying though was like the way that it's shot was a good comp. Like the way in which the like tension builds where you're not sure if this is a big deal or not, but then it becomes this massive deal. That is kind of the comp for the movie that I'm writing that I chose that worked really well. So you really want to find something that has the same vibe, that has kind of a similar tone or visual look. It doesn't need to be something that has the same story, and probably shouldn't be something that has the same story because they're going to be like, well, if this story already exists, why am I doing this? Characters. Who are your main characters? What do they want? What's in their way? How does it tie back to themes? Who plays them in your dream of dreams? The way this usually breaks out is on a PowerPoint slide, and it's the character's name, like Eliza. There's a actor's picture, and it's just any actor picture that you find on Google, and you just write Eliza wants X. In her way is Z. It goes back to the themes of betrayal because of this, and this is who I think the kind of person that should play this person. It's again pretty fast because you don't have a lot of time. Something that's really big that again I tend to struggle with is people really want a personal connection. Like, why specifically should you tell this story now? This I struggle with because I know why I want to tell the stories that are my own, like the things I come up with on my own. But like if there's some book that someone gave me about, one of the books that they gave me was kind of like about this like person on the spectrum who was like a math nerd, and I was just like, I don't know why this story should be me, specifically why I should tell this story, which is why I actually declined that one. But like if you say you pick that book because you're like, whatever, I need the money for whatever reason you're doing it, or I want the experience, you really need to find a tie-in. One of the pitches that I did recently that I didn't get was for a book called If I Survive You, and that book is about the son of Jamaican migrants, and about kind of being like in the middle of, you're not quite Black enough for Americans, you're not Latina or Latinx for Latinos, Latinx people, but like you're kind of in the middle, and I really, really gravitated towards that. I really, really love the themes that was in that book. There's a lot of stuff about like Caribbean themes, and even though I'm not Jamaican, I am Belizean, and so there were a lot of tie-ins for me. So I could very easily be like, I should tell this story because the mom in this book is my mom. Like my mom would have made those same choices, and that's what I think really helped me get as far as I did. I was able to pitch. There's a couple pitch meetings, so I was able to make it to the third pitch meeting, and it was down to me and another writer, and then the strike happened, and life happens. And it will probably now go to an executive producer, but that's okay. What's important is you find what your personal connection is, right? So you'll have 40 minutes of material by the done your time writing everything. Trust me, you will. You only have 15 minutes. And again, that 15 is being generous. It's really 10. So you want to be precise. There's a saying that someone said at a workshop that I went to is like land the plane. Like you want to say exactly what you mean. You don't want to don't try to cushion it like, oh, I'm not sure if you'd like this. You don't have time for it. Get rid of all of the qualifiers. Say this is about this. This is how I want to tell it. This is why I want to tell it. Boom, 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 boom. Be as specific as possible because you do not have the time to ramble. We're gonna practice. Yay! I'm gonna quickly check. Okay. Great. We're gonna practice. So you'll be, again, because you'll most likely be adapting a book, I've chosen 6 real books that you're all gonna pick and you're gonna make a movie. They're all classics. Their summaries are very easy to Google. I will drop the link in the chat. And then there's gonna be a question that says, why is this story now? And I really want you to urge to not say the story is timeless. That does not work. That's never worked in a pitch session. That might be how they market it once it comes back to us, like as like the consumers, when it's like the trailer, but that's not how you get a pitch sold. You don't get a pitch sold by saying it's timeless. Really get into the why now. What elements would you change? Update these classic stories as best you can. Great, great, great. So I'm going to, for a second, oh, no, thank you. Stop sharing. Okay. And then I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you. Hi, everybody. And then I'll share my screen again. Perfect on me. Okay. So there is the link in the chat. We're gonna go backwards to right here. I'm gonna share my screen. It's so fun hearing me narrate my life. I don't know how I turned into this person, but I have. Okay, we're gonna slideshow it. Great. So you've got 15 minutes, pick one of those books, write a practice pitch. I'm gonna turn my camera off, but I will be watching the chat if you get lost. The really important thing that you need to know is you will have to do a 30-second pitch of why you, why now, why the story on these classic books. Best of luck. If you do not want to do it, just when I come back after the 15 minutes, say, dear God, no, or Rachel pass, or please don't make me. We don't have to do it. We don't have to slot it in. But if anyone does want to, please know that you can. Okay, I hope you're ready. I can't see any of you, so other than Scarlett, but I'm gonna go away and you have 15 minutes. Work on those pitches on those books. All right, bye.
Hey, is everybody okay in there? I can't even see you or anything. Y'all good? Can you open everything? I see different. I'm gonna guess you're okay. If not, chat me. Can't see you or anything. Y'all so quiet. Shh.
back.
I forgot to unrecord, stop. Oh, well. Anyway, sorry. Bye.
No, it's okay. What, did you forget to turn the recording back on?
Yep, but, oh, well.
Come to the next one. Can you let me know if you can see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. All right, let's go.
We did a poll while you were gone. It's pretty
Great.
cool. Yeah, looks like we're gonna have a lot of people writing books and or I'm with the people who are like, what's stopping you from writing? Myself. Yeah,
So the problem is me. I love it.
it's definitely me.
Okay. Let's get into TV. So we don't have a lot of time left. Again, this part's probably going to take about like 20, 25 minutes, and then Q&A. So just, again, keeping up, managing expectations, because I like when people tell me when I can go back to sleep. So, or whatever you're doing, whatever busy, important thing you're doing on Sunday, and not saying that you're going back to sleep. I just think about my bed all the time. TV. So the IP problem, people say it's worse in TV than it is in film. It's pretty bad. I mean, think about the last TV shows that you've watched. How many of them are not based on a book in any way, shape, or form, or a short story? There's just not many. That's just the truth of it. Every once in a while, a show like Succession or Severance will come around, but like is Succession not based on a book? I don't know. There's a lot of Shakespearean themes in there, and it's all theater people. So like I've thought about that too. Like I bet they used a book while they were pitching it. So you really need super strong comps. It's again, just keep thinking about the more and more you can be reading those bestseller lists, the more and more you can stay on top of the times, and like just what books are doing well, what stories are doing, has it sold yet, has someone picked it up, but there's no writer attached. Like, these are things that you usually can Google. I know this is a feature pitching, but pitching for TV is pretty similar, so I wanted to add it in. It's the same initial process, with, again, synopsis, themes, tone, comps, characters, YU. Setting does matter a lot more in television, though. Mostly because, again, I think budgets, but a lot of TV is probably like 5 million max. And when you think about how much actors cost, that really doesn't leave much left for the actual filming and production. And every location costs money. Like, I really suggest the next time you watch a TV show, try to count. There's a thing called retrofitting, where one location, I know in the Winchesters, we used one of our locations for like 6 different locations. Like it was like, this is the house, now it's the clubhouse, now it's the bunker, like, and it was all the same room. So really they start noticing like, how many locations are there in TV and film locations? This is a movie, and movies don't have that many locations either. That always kind of makes me giggle. Something that is radically different for television is that you're looking at a much bigger picture than a feature. You are pitching the entire show, which means not just the first season, you're pitching the whole show arc, the whole multi-season arc. You can try to pitch a miniseries. A miniseries is usually like, it's a single season with 13 or 10 or 15 episodes. They're not selling. Miniseries aren't really selling. You kind of have to already be a pretty big name, or an actor who just wants to do a special project. And usually they have writers they've already tapped in. So I wouldn't pitch a miniseries. I wouldn't go with that. Luckily, unluckily, in the whole miniseries conversation, TV seasons are a lot shorter than they used to be, as you've probably noticed. They used to be like 22 episodes. They're now like 13, maybe 13, 15. Network TV is dying, unfortunately, or fortunately. I can talk about that too during the Q&A. So you usually get about, the way it usually goes is like season 1 has 10 episodes. You know this from watching TV. And then by season 2, you get 13, and season 3 gets 13. And you really only get 3 to 5. What was I going to say? 3 to 5 seasons. But you need to be able to pitch all the way, like on your first day, saying, even before you have a season 1 written, here's what happens in season 5. When you pitch a TV show, you pitch the entire arc. But it's so simpler. So one of the things I like to say is your idea big enough? Why is this a TV show and not a movie? I think Eric Kripke, who does he did Supernatural, and then he also has done what is that show called on Amazon? The Boys. He talks about how a lot of TV right now looks way too much like movies. Like it's a bunch of filmmakers who realized that there was more money in television, which there is, and decided that they were going to make basically like movies for television and call it a TV show. You'll see TV shows getting longer and longer. Some of my favorite TV shows that used to be 20 minutes long. The most recent episode of it was an hour and a half. Blasphemy. And the whole season, this season was hours long. And it's losing the craft of television. There's a really nice craft, and I'll get off my high horse in a second, of a tight 22-minute episode or tight 22-minute episode. There's a craft in a tight 15-minute episode, and really like getting out what you need to make a story go along, and you're not trying to make it a feature. It is a television show that has an arc, that is moving towards something. We've lost that a bit, but regardless, you do need to know, is your idea big enough that it can span multi-seasons and that the story can keep going? Can the question, your big question, last the length? In addition to synopsis, I can't say that word today. I don't know why I can't say that word today. Major character arcs are really important. Every season needs a breakdown, which is 5 to 6 sentences, and every episode in season 1 needs to be beat out with 3 to 5 sentences. I'm gonna double check this to make sure we're good. Okay. Great. So the pilot. You've heard this, you know this, we all know this if you've been in here before. You sell a show based on the pilot. This is how you sell it. Your pilot should be about a page-long description, and it also should be written out. So that's what that means. I wrote that really weird, so I'm sorry for that. Is that you should have a page-long description of what happens in your pilot, and then you should also have a pilot ready to go. They say, great, send us your pilot. So first, write the pilot. 2, write a page-long description of it. This is how you sell it. It really needs to catch their attention, introduce the season arc and the series arc, which is really important. A lot of pilots will only introduce the season arc if they can do that. And it needs a cliffhanger and answers no questions. It asks a lot of questions, but it doesn't answer any questions. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example this time because I'm so nice to you. 1 second. So we're going to skip and go over here. Boom, 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 boom. I had this copied and now it's not copied anymore. It's driving me a little nuts. So I'm dropping this in the chat, but I'm also going to screen share. So just so you can see it. All right. Cool. So this is was my pitch for If I Survive You. I mentioned earlier. I also mentioned earlier it did not go through. But you can see there's my quick synopsis up there. There are my themes. They're all one word. There's my tone. It's a dramedy. It's an hour. There are my comps. It has the realest moments. You can read that yourself. The house is a character in the show itself. But as you see, I like talk about, here's the house. Here's these are all my notes for the pitch. This wasn't the exact pitch document. I say exactly what happens in season 1, in season 2, in season 3, and that at the end of season 3, which is the end, the season arc is right there. 3 seasons with 10 episodes each. This is based on a book because of course it is. It talks a little bit about the narration. It talks about the characters. And then you break down season 1. So season 1, so 101, 102. So usually it's 1 for season 1, the first numbers of season, and then 0 episode, unless it's like 111, which you'll see, or 110, which you'll see later. And that's each of those episodes breaking down how I would have done it if I were to pitch the show, right? So then next we get, again, this was not the official pitch document. When you make an official pitch document, you need pictures next to these people's names. These are just my notes that I was preparing for the pitch that I end up doing, and I can't unfortunately show you that because I'm not allowed to. So, but I am allowed to show you this because these are my notes that no one else saw. So you'll see Trelawney, Delano, Topper, Cookie, minor characters, got all of those. And then if you scroll down, these are some notes you don't need to read, but you can if you want to. Is there anything in there that I don't want you to know? Nah. All right. And then if you scroll all the way down, here's the pilot. Like it's a whole page on its own of exactly what that's going to happen beat by beat, not beat by beat fully, but kind of through the ideas of what happens in the pilot. So again, you have a copy of this. If you want to look at it, you're welcome to, but I bet you know what's coming, or usually she should. You ready to write? Yeah, we love writing, Rachel. It's so much fun. So I want you to go back into the book that you adapted into a feature. What are the central questions? What would a pilot of this book look like? Take 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes to think through how you'd write your pilot, how many seasons it is, what is the arc of season 1, and how the episodes beat out. I'm not going to ask you to share this, so if you want to do it on a book that you actually like and you know really well, please feel free to do that. I do think trying to practice your adaptation skills is really important. So I wouldn't try to do an original idea. I would try to pick a book. But if you're like, Rachel, those classic books were atrocious, I'm not going to ask you to share this. So I'm going to turn off unless anyone has any big qualms, I don't think so. I'm going to turn off my camera, turn off my mic, 10 minutes. What's the TV show of your book look like? I'm going to try to turn off my camera. There it is.
Hey guys, you can save the chat by going to the chat function that's located at the bottom of your screen. And then you click on that, you'll see all the chats that come up. And then you can go into the function where you would write, and right beside the emoji that strangely opens its mouth every time you hover your mouse over it, there's these 3 dots. And when you click on the 3 dots, the option to save chat is right there.
All right, welcome back, or I guess welcome me back. Hope your writing was well and everything went okay. We've only got a couple more minutes left. All right, I am going to keep on keeping on. Time to talk about the money. I spent all of that. It's, I'm not giving a lot of time because I want to keep this. I like a 90-minute type thing, and I also want to give enough time for Q&A. But yeah, I know you need more time. I know I'm not giving you enough time. I also hope that it forces you to prioritize, but anyway, money. You can Google at any point in your life WGA schedule of minimums, and it tells you how much people make. This is open information that you can Google. And I can send you the link later. But if you just Google that exact phrasing, it'll take you to the website. There's a whole packet. I think the most recent one was 2020, which is again why we're striking. The most you can make on a screenplay per WGA is 145K. Here's a big caveat on that. Sometimes an actor, producer, director is you hear these stories about I sold my screenplay for 2 million, or I sold my screenplay for blah, 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 blah. That can happen. That's very rare. There are times when an exec goes above and beyond. But typically most studios and networks, because there's a lot more budgeting in TV than I think a lot of people realize. There's a lot less money in TV when you've got to pay your lead $1 million and you have a $5 million budget. That really cuts how much you pay your writers, especially the way that they're paying us these days, and hence why we're striking. And again, these numbers are likely to change after the strike, but this is the current minimums right now. So when I say the most that you can make is 145K, technically that's the minimum you can make. Not really, it's a range. There's a range, but the most you're likely to make is what that should say, is 145K, because that's the minimum they have to pay you. And they love the minimums. They love minimums in TV so much. So it's not that much money. When you think about it's a lot of money depending on where you're at in life. It's a lot of money to me, but when I think about when you hear about these $2 million scripts and these $3 million scripts, it's not that much in comparison to that. I can tell you right now, I'm very frank and honest about money. I am getting paid 40K to write the screenplay that I'm writing. Usually it's between 42 and 60. That's usually the sweet spot. And again, that's how much you get for the whole project. And you're working on this for a year and a half of your life. There is worth mentioning, let's say, so I have 40 on mine. to write the first draft and the second draft. If it goes into production and it makes it to, it has a theatrical release, then I get another 100, I get not another, I get 120K if there's a theatrical release and if I am the sole writer. We talked earlier how rare that is. It's very rare to be the sole writer. But those are possible numbers. The TV minimum right now is $4,600 a week for staff writers, which is up to 40 weeks. Usually more realistically, it's 26 weeks. So that's $119,600. There's a lot of hidden costs in TV. Like I said, you have to go to set and like they do pay for your flight and your hotel, but food is on you. As a TV writer, you're expected to buy food truck for the crew. And that took me out about $1,500. Wasn't expecting. For the cast and crew, really. There's other things like being on the WGA, you have to pay dues. So the reason why people strike, I know that coming from playwriting, when I saw that $4,600 a week, I was like, y'all are on, sorry to be reductive, but y'all are on crack if you think that's not enough money. Like, that's crazy. And then I got into it, and with taxes, you're taxed sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. You have your managers, your agents, all the people you have to pay, and then all the hidden costs that sneak up on you and TV, all the startup costs, your dues to the union. It starts to turn into nothing very quickly. Again, I'm a very upfront person, so my $4,600 after taxes and my agents all got paid, went down to about $1,500 a week for 20 weeks. And I did not have the full 26, I only had 20. And then that doesn't include, I still had the same dues as everybody else, and I still had to pay the same food truck. So there's a lot of hidden things in TV that sneak up on you. And it's why, and I live in the Twin Cities, you know, for people that live in LA, they can't afford rent with what we're being paid. So again, the strike is important. But screenwriters aren't millionaires. Most of them are also living paycheck to paycheck in a very different kind of way until they make it big. And then once they have like a big name, you know, like Baz Luhrmann, who's also a director. A lot of the doubling up is when you get the $1 million for your fees. But until then, this is the money. This is what it looks like. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have questions, let me know. You can turn your camera on. You can pop them in the chat. I'm here for you. If not, let's all go drink tea and go back to sleep. Oh, great. Can anyone become a member of the WGA? I'm going to answer this question in a way that I think is what you're asking, and then you let me know if it's not right. I think the real question is, how do you become a member of the WGA? So can anyone who's a writer? Sure, but there's a process. So there's WGA West and there's WGA East. The easiest way to become it is to start working in television. So you want an agent, you want a manager, you want to get in a room, which doesn't usually mean your own show. You just want to get in a room, you want to get staffed. How do you get staffed, right? So I will get to that next question in a second. How do you get staffed? So you have managers and agents. Usually this is the easiest way to do it. And then there's not a WGA Central. Oh, I got to stop looking at the chat at the same time that I'm talking. My ADHD is going crazy. So there's WGA West, WGA East. The way they do it is west of the Mississippi is WGA West. East of the Mississippi is WGA East. I hate that. I hate that definition of it because I live on the Mississippi. So I had to fight really hard for my WGA West. Anyway, you get staffed. You get a terrifying email once you're staffed that says, congratulations, you're in a WGA supported room. You have to join the WGA or you have to quit your job. You have to pay us $2,500. Welcome. And you're like, huh? And so that's how you get into the WGA is you get staffed. That is the easiest way. Another way is you become associate member, and let's say you're a writer's assistant for a little bit. You join IATSE and you're a screenwriter's personal assistant, you're a writer's assistant, you're a production assistant, and you can stack your credits that way. And then once you get enough credits, you get to become a full member of the WGA. This is all out on their website, but it's a credit-based system. But the fastest and simplest way to do it is, unfortunately, to get staffed. I hope that answers it. I'll come back to it if it hasn't. The next question is from Don. Hey, Don. That says, my question is, writing a spec for TV, does that involve a pitch process? How did I get on the Winchesters? Great question. So I wrote a 30-minute, so the shortest answer is my agents got me connected to the showrunner who desperately needed a writer. And I was like, hello. But what I had was I wrote a pilot of my own show. So you call it a spec script if you want. I wrote a pilot of a show that I want to pitch one day. And they sent that pilot and one of my plays. So if you're a playwright, you can send plays. And one of my plays to the showrunner read it. The showrunner read it, and then we met, and then we just talked about themes in the Winchesters and themes in Supernatural, because I'm a huge Supernatural fan. And then that's how I got on the Winchesters. But it was through a connection made by my agents saying like, hey, I know this person who leads a writer. And what they sent him was my pilot of my TV show, and my play. So my pilot's called Better Humans, and my play Apologies, which you directed. Thank you. So that's how I did it. The way most staff writers get it is they're not looking for, it used to be you wanted a script of a TV show that already existed. That's not what they're really looking for anymore. What they want is just a pilot to show off your own voice with your own story. Like, what does your own imagination look like when it goes wild? You really want to make sure you're matching genre. I am very lucky that my 30-minute was accepted by the showrunner because it's a 60-minute show. So if you're pitching for a drama, you want a 60-minute sample. If you're pitching for a comedy, you want a 30-minute sample. So 30 minutes just kind of means by the page number. Again, I think without the play also included, I wouldn't have gotten on the Winchesters because they were looking for a 60-minute and not a 30-minute. But I want to write in comedy. So that's why I wrote a 30-minute sample. Anything else?
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any
Is it
books
time for me to make some tea?
read? I just went ahead and asked questions since y'all other people
Yeah.
were.
So I mentioned Save the Cat already. The next one that I think is really, really great is Robert McKee. It's Story by Robert McKee. Every single screenwriter has read this book. There are multiple editions of this book. It's really great. It just really breaks down how to write a story, down to character, down to substance, just everything you need for structure, for screenwriting. So what are the two biggest misconceptions about the writers being in the writer's room? I don't know what conceptions are about, right? I think it's so hard to think about the two biggest misconceptions because I don't think anybody can even imagine what happens in a writer's room unless you know someone who's been in one. I think that a lot of people think what happens in a writer's room, like if they look at like 30 Rock, where it's a bunch of people just kind of like effing around, and then somehow the stories get written every time. And like, that's not, I mean, that's also sketch. That's not TV. Writer's rooms, I'm not good at misconceptions, so I can just tell you what they're like. That's just easier for me. Writer's rooms are you get together. I've been in two so far, and both of them I was really lucky to be in these kinds of writers' rooms. The showrunner gives you their outline for season 1 on day 1. You read it. There's no drinking. There's no drinking. There's no drinking, unfortunately. You work. It's crazy. You work like 9 to 5, just like you would do on any other job. You go in. You sit there for 4 hours. It's very heavy head work. You talk about your ideas. You look at the showrunner. They've given you this is what has to happen in this episode, and you just talk at each other for 8 hours a day about here's how this could happen or here's how this could happen until eventually you have a story, and then you work out the beat board together, and then the outline is assigned. TV episode, the TV writer was like, I'm really passionate about this story, so I want to write this one. And really, like, especially both rooms that I was in, it's all happening so fast that it's whoever turn it is. Like, we had to churn out 13 episodes, and we were in production at the same time that we were writing. Like, episode 2 was being filmed while we were writing episode 5, and then 3 different writers were off doing, like, we were all separated and split, which is why we want bigger writers' room. And so you're exhausted all the time and you're really tired. But it's also really fun. But it's just, again, it's 8 hours of talking and being collaborative and being a good listener is something that I think is really important. I think people think that like there's a singular genius in a writer's room, but one big misconception I can say is I think when you see that written by, you think that's the person who wrote it, and that's not true. That's the person who did the typey, what I like to say, but all of the writers wrote the story together. They all conceptualized it. And again, it's 8 hours a day, every day of the week on set. When I got to set, your hours are nuts. You're working from, my day started at like 6 a.m. and they went until like 8 p.m. You're exhausted. You're working 13, 14-hour days trying to get these filming schedules. And unfortunately there is not more whiskey. I wish that there was. But I also don't know how we'd get anything done. Anything else?
Rachel, I have a few more questions. I took advantage of this workshop really to get in the room with you, Rachel.
Yeah.
One, are you using the same reps for theater and film TV? You have separate reps?
I have separate reps under the same company. So kind of. So my TV agent is Grace Buting, under WME, my film agent, or my film. My TV and film is Grace Buting under WME. My theater agent under WME is Michael Finkel. And my managers under Kaplan Perrone are Josh and Hannah. So there's a whole team of people.
Wow. Okay, great. And then in my sort of education journey, I'm trying to understand, this is TV question again, like what it means to like move from like staff writer to story editor, blah, blah, and like what that really means.
Yeah. So so just to kind of catch everyone else up, there's levels of TV, right? So there's staff writer, that's kind of like the entry point. Next up is story editor, executive story editor, producer, executive producer. So just letting everyone else know the stacks. The way that it's supposed to go is you're only supposed to do each one once, supposedly.
Yes.
I have been a staff writer twice, almost 3 times, because, and this is part of why we're striking, TV's been looking for a lot of loopholes. Sometimes people will take a lesser title, just to get in the room, just to get the job. That's what I did for Winchesters. I was like, I don't care if I'm not story editor, I just want the job. Where that comes into play is staff writers don't get paid script fees. So if you write a script, I wrote an episode of television that I will never be paid for, and has aired, has my name on it. It's just written by Rachel Lynett, and I never got a script fee. I do get residuals, which is different, but I don't get a script fee, and that script fee is chunky, and I wanted it. But after you've done staff writer once, you then are allowed to move up to story editor, and that means your money gets higher. So it goes from like, and it's a pretty big jump. I think I still have a cute little post-it about it. It goes from 45 to 75. So story editors can make up to 75 a week. So it's a pretty sizable jump. Executive story editors, where sometimes people get stuck, but basically the more and more you work, the more and more you're supposed to move up. And it's your personal choice if you want to stay at a level just to keep working, which a lot of people have, which is how you end up with staff writers for 10 years. But technically with your experience, it's supposed to be automatic. You're supposed to just say like, no, I'm an upper level writer. One of the things the strike is trying to bring is a new level, actually, which is called writer producer, which would slot between executive story editor, between producer and executive producer, which again forces kind of shortness to send us to set. Yeah, but it's to be automatic. You're supposed to just be able to move up as you staff more and more and more. It's an experience thing.
Great. Thank you. I'll pause.
I'd say go for it.
Yeah, pause not.
I'm looking forward to my tea.
I mean, I mean, maybe it's beyond the scope of this workshop, but I'm just curious how you got your TV reps, having never done TV, or film.
Yeah, I got my TV reps from being a badass playwright. I don't know if I could curse, but that's going to be my one that I'm going to use today. Sorry.
Accurate.
I so I two things happened where I was very lucky. I got my managers first with Kaplan Perone, and they were looking for new, like during 2020, we all know what happened in 2020. That's when everyone looked around and went, just to be really blunt, and I'm sorry because I can't say everybody's faces, but I'm just a very blunt person. They looked around and said, not a lot of color in here. We don't have a lot of people of color that we're repping. We need to change that. The streets are on fire. We need to change that. So in summer of 2020, Kaplan Perone reached out to me and said, hey, we read one of your plays. We would really like to rep you and see if you're interested. Are you interested in TV? Can we get you talking to people? Can we get your plays out there? So it was literally all through my plays, like all of my generals that I had up until 2021, end of 2021, were all from my plays. They found me on New Play Exchange, which is kind of crazy. They had seen that I had a couple of productions, and then that's how I got my managers. And then after I won the Yale Prize, I had so many agents calling me. They're like, TV now, TV, come to TV. And so I had my choice. And again, it was pretty, and I didn't want to write for TV. I think that that's something worth saying. Like, I lost my chance at a rep from CAA, which is one of the bigger agencies, who was really like, we want you, but you have to want to write TV. And I was like, gross. And I didn't get my TV rep until after I was staffed, and that for a different show that's never going to air called Retrograde, that was going to be on Netflix. The way that I got him though was he saw a recording of one of my plays called Abortion Road Trip on YouTube, and he just reached out to me. I got a random email one day and it was like, hey, you want to write for TV? And I thought it was fake. And the next thing I know, I'm getting Netflix merch in the mail, you know? So sometimes it's just by chance. I think that, again, I know you're an amazing creative. Just being an amazing creative, they'll find you. They know about you. I've had generals with people I've never heard of, and they're like, we've heard a lot about you. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, they found me.
And then this is sort of maybe a crappy question given the ongoing writers' strike. But you know, us in theater are like, oh, all of our best playwrights are moving to TV. And I just wonder how because you are such a prolific playwright, like you churn out so many plays. How are you balancing a film and TV career with a theater career?
What's really nice, my honest answer is poorly, but what I will say, what's really nice is that one of the reasons why TV and film pay the way, or not film, one of the reasons why TV pays the way that it does is there's an understanding that there's a lot of off time, that you are intensely working for 3 months and then you don't work for the next 9 months. And so you do that intense work, but then you have 9 months to work on plays. I think that like playwrights, I have time to balance it. I try my best to balance it. Sometimes they do collide and explode in my face a little. And I think that that's everybody's personal choice. I will say that like the week that I was sent to set, dream come true, was also the week that Apologies was having a full production in Orlando. So I left set at like 5 a.m. to go fly to Orlando to see my play, and then left them at 5 a.m. to go back to set. It was nuts. It was crazy. I did not sleep. It was a very October was a stressful month for me. But you figure it out. You figure out what works for you. You figure out how to balance it. And again, there is a lot of downtime because you have to wait for 1, your episode to air, 2, for the show to wrap, and then to find out if you can get renewed or not. And then if you do get renewed, there's still months of waiting before you can start the writer's room again. So there's downtime, especially now with the shorter episode orders. I think, to be frank, a lot of playwrights, this is not my personal place where I'm at, but a lot of playwrights are trying to decide if they want to go back to theater. And that's the bigger question, is will theater be kinder to us when we come back? I know that I have not yet gotten to a point where I can walk away, but I don't think it's that we can't. I think it's we're trying to decide if we want to or not. But you balance it like you balance everything else.
Thank you, Rachel.
Of course.
Those are my handful of questions.
Those were great questions.
They were.
Yeah. Got any more of them?
I'm just a huge Rachel fan. And they know
I'm a
it.
I'm a huge Dawn fan. We're big fans of each other. All right. I don't think
Well, is there anything we should have asked
any
but
more questions.
haven't? That's usually my ending one.
I don't think there's anything you should have asked, but I will say this is hard for a reason. It's hard to do, and that's why pitching's so hard. That's why you hear about these people who pitched over 100 places. Like, it's hard for a reason. And I know that we want to be like, how do I do it? I just want to do it now. Or who do I talk to? Who do I talk to? But the more that you can practice the how before you have to, the better. Is something that it's advice that I hated hearing, and I still hate hearing, but it's true. The more and more you can get that those 30 seconds on why this story, what is the story, which is very hard to squeeze into 30 seconds. The more you can figure out how to do this before, because as Dawn asked, thank you, Dawn, for asking, like, how did they find me? They just do. I got a random email. Next thing I knew, my whole life was changed. I got a random phone call. My life changed again. And for the If I Survive You pitch, which you saw, I had a week to put a pitch together. I didn't have a lot of time, and that includes reading the book. So you really want to have these skills honed in before you have to, is kind of the biggest takeaway that I would say. Also, thank you for coming. It was great seeing
Why
those
do you think?
squares.
Oh yeah, thanks. Coco, if you want to put on your video and ask a question, that's great.
Great,
I was
thank
also
you. I
kind of
didn't-
wondering, but
Hi, sorry. Obviously I'm new to Zoom, so y'all bear with me. I'm old. I've worked in film and television for about 40 years as a hair and makeup artist. So this has been very, very, very fascinating for me, because this is the part of the thing that no matter what crew member you are, if you aren't there as, with the writers, we don't see the writers for the most part. So thank you so, so much. You filled in a lot of gaps. My quick question, not so quick question. When you talked about, and I'm sure you've mentioned many times that they find you, and I know that they found you as a playwright, you had written stories, you were out there. Would you recommend any social media platforms? Is there any way or better, best choices for making yourself known, I guess, is my question.
I am not. I will say that a lot of people say Twitter is great for this, that you can meet people. I know writers who claim that they have gotten shows off of Twitter, that they like tweeted a showrunner and the showrunner said, let's meet for general, and that's how they got it. I'm going to say something that seems really ageist, and I don't mean to. I don't think they're on socials. I don't think people that like you, whose attention you want, are on social media. A lot of showrunners these days are deleting their Twitters. I know mine did. He doesn't have, there was a huge like Winchesters drama that I'm happy to talk about anytime. And so Robbie deleted his because of it, because he got tired of people adding him. He was like, why am I part of this? And I think that the industry is kind of turning away from social media a little, is kind of my mind on it. That's my own personal belief, though. I know a lot of writers that say it's Twitter, though.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
I think yeah, that people are turning away from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that social media is probably one of the worst things that's happened to, okay, I'm not going to get on my platform, but I really am glad to hear you say that. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, you're welcome to hate on social media. It's a curse. I adore it. I use it like a live journal. So like, I'm the worst. Like, I'm always posting nonsense. But like, I hope no one that can determine my career can see my social media. I've got a fake name on Facebook. Like,
Perfect answer. Thank you so much, Rachel. That really sums it up. Thank you.
yeah.
So is this how it kind of worked too? If you were the author of the book, but you didn't want to write the screenplay, would you work with you? Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So you have to pitch to the writer. So I'm writing a screenplay based on a book, and I had to pitch my pitch to the novelist. And they had to say basically yes or no, and they get the final say. Well, sometimes in this case, they got the final say. So it depends. They don't usually co-write it with you. A lot of novelists, I won't say a lot, that's a lie. 70% of novelists recognize that they're a novelist and they are not screenwriters. And I'm sorry, I know that there are people that want a story to be book perfect, but that's just not interesting. There's a lot of things you can do in a novel that you just can't do on screen. Like, we can't just show someone's 3 chapters of introspection on screen. Like, you're gonna have to change some things. And so most novelists just recognize it's a different medium and kind of step away, but you do have to sell them on your pitch. So after you pitch the studio, you do have to pitch to the writer.
I do have one other question that, and then I guess I was surprised there are not more movies or TVs or anything about like certain books, like Camilla, the vampire, old school vampire book. I don't know if you've read it, but it's pretty, I think it's called. And I was kind of wondering why that Carmilla. It's like a Gothic novel before Dracula.
Oh, nice.
And so and it's about, it's a female centered sort of show. And I'm surprised we have we have so many Draculas and no Carmillas.
So what I'll say is already in the comment, a lot of the books that you think, why hasn't this been made? Is because someone bought the rights and they're sitting on it.
Oh.
There's a lot of books where I'll pitch it and they're like, oh, blah, blah, has the rights. They'll do, one of the books I really love is called Children of Blood and Bone. And I can't remember what company it is, but they've been sitting on the rights for the last 4 years. They've done nothing with it. The book that was really big recently, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, they've been sitting on the rights for that for 3 years, 2 years. Sometimes books rights will get picked up before it even gets published, and they'll sit on it way past it. So I would definitely like Google, if you're going to pitch a book, Google, make sure it's not already picked up or in development, or that it's not already in the works somewhere, because I bet it is. All that they do, execs are not listening to you talk, unfortunately, but they're spending a lot of time reading. They're some of the most well-read people I've ever met.
That's cool. Okay. Well, I guess we don't have any more other questions, but thank you guys for being here. And thank you, Rachel, for being here and being so open and honest and answering all the questions. Thanks. So
yeah, thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Great.
Bye,
Thank
it was
you.
great. Thank you, Rachel.